Welcome everyone to Conversations with Masters on the topic of allowing. This is a one-part series where the Masters will be discussing the topic of allowing. Everyone on this call is an enlightened master who agreed to participate in this conversation and share their wisdom and experiences around this topic of allowing. Our intention with these conversations is to look at many topics from a higher perspective. You can seek out most of these masters participating in this Conversation Master Series. They all have unique gifts. Some of them offer their services. Please look them up so you may learn more about their services. They are identified, including their websites on how to reach them, in the comment section below. As stated, today we will discuss what does it mean to allow and how do we allow. So let's get started. We are hearing more and more from all of our spiritual leaders and channelers that we need to allow, and that we do not need to do as much, but to allow. We also hear it's important to stay in our power and our consciousness, then to allow the universe, which is also us, to co-create these experiences we wish to have. So how do we allow, and what does it mean to allow? Does it mean nothing at all? To do nothing at all? So, fellow masters, what is your perspective on what it means to allow and why it is important?
I just said for me, allowing means being in my now moment. I mean, truly focused in my now moment and not trying to figure things out on my own.
So how do you get in your now moment?
I have to get out of my head and down to my heart, taking some deep breaths if necessary, but just focusing on what's going on right now, not what's going to happen in the future, what happened in the past, but what is actually going on right now.
So what happens if you have distractions?
Have to come back into it, which happens a lot. I just have to come back into it, just refocus and stay in my now moment.
So you allow by staying in your now moment and focusing?
I think if I'm not, then I'm trying to figure it out. Well, how's that going to work? What am I going to have to do? Who's going to do what? What's going to happen next? Well, that's not going to work. What else, But if I'm just focused and I'm just calm and I'm just in my now moment, in the now moment, then I'm not trying to figure it out and I'm not thinking about, well, it never worked before. Why would it work now? Just relax and allow it to happen, knowing that the universe, everything is out there, everything has already been created. I may not see it right now, physically see it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I'm just allowing.
So when you're not allowing and you're figuring it out, that's what more you're human. And
Yes.
so who takes over when you're allowing?
Me, my real me, the real power that is me, the divine me, the real me. The one that's in the power, with power. I'm in my power because I can allow when I'm in my power.
Even just you saying that, I felt that power. Just by you saying that, I felt that.
Because she was in her power. You emanate that, and that creates more of the same as people experiencing you being in your power. They start to feel it too, and it just grows and grows. So I think it was beautifully put on. Thank you.
Thank you.
I find that I've been going for quite a few years now, more and more on guidance. And, one can have all kinds of idea what guidance means, and, anything from pulling tarot cards to, opening up to your higher self, or automatic writing, or asking a psychic. There's a big scale, but I'm talking about connecting with myself, my real self, just as Dawn was talking about. And if my real self isn't directing me in any given moment, then that's the only thing I can do is to allow. To allow. And I may ask, and perhaps I get an answer in the moment, and perhaps it's just more allowing to be in that space of not knowing. In fact, I found that just this week that was a very big theme. I don't know. I don't know. I'm in a huge space of I don't know, which I think is, from my perspective, it's one and the same with the all-knowing, that 0 point. So it's because the possibilities are endless. You don't know, but it's all there. So it's not something to just like push through. You know, being in that space of allowing is a very blessed space when you allow it.
Sandy, what's interesting for me lately is that we talk about when we're allowing, we're not resisting. So one of the things that I personally get entangled in is the idea of resisting what it is that I don't want, which is then again focusing on what I don't want. And so the question for me sometimes is when I imagine what I do want, which is to really go to another place and really imagine what I do want, the energy sometimes can still be what I don't want, even in the I do want, and thereby I am prolonging the resistance and not allowing. So one of the challenges is, how do you allow and still go after what you want without bringing in that energy of what you don't want? Because allowing is all about that energy of what I don't want for me.
Good.
If I
Masters,
might,
answer that for me.
I have a very vivid recollection of learning a lesson about allowing and resistance. And I was doing an exercise in a very large, 1,000 people or so, but all beautiful. And I was unhappy with how the exercise went. I could feel the resistance. I could feel that things hadn't resolved. And when my partner that I was working with said, "Do you want to go through that again?" I was like, "No." And it was so clear that the resistance was so intense that it like became so obvious that I had to. This was key. And I feel that when you allow the resistance to be, because when I went through that process again, it was all about not creating that which I wanted, right? So I couldn't get to creating what I wanted because this thing was a wall I had created that I just kept trying to turn my head and face the other way, but the wall was still surrounding me and blocking me. So I think when you then go into just allowing the fact that you're in resistance, for one, instead of what can I strategize to pull away from that? And we have very good, very metaphysically resonant theories or expressions of, well, if you focus on that, you're creating more of that. But if you're refusing to focus on it, this I think was at the core of what you were saying, Troy, is like you're actually creating more of that because you're pushing, actively pushing it away. So if it's just a question of allowing while you're pushing away, if you stop pushing, it's like, okay, take me over and allow. And I think what ends up happening is once you give in, it's like, all right, that wasn't so bad. You know, I moved the stuff out and wow, I feel lighter. And wow, now, you know, that isn't as intense. That wall is way lower than it was. And I can actually move forward into that vision of what it is I want.
Thanks for that, Sylvia. But I think what, based on what Troy brought up and also what you said too, it occurred to me that resistance is and then Sharon, I'm going to go to you to say what you're going to say. But it occurs to me resistance is the opposite of allowing. So good or bad. So resistance is literally the opposite. So if you're resisting, you're not allowing. If you're allowing, you're not resisting, perhaps, whether it's even good or bad. So that was good. Anyway, Sharon, you were going to say something?
Well, yeah, I'll say some. Well, I was laughing or delighted about the topic of allowing, because I thought, okay, this gives me a chance to be really cheeky and naughty, because I have been hearing, the only person I've ever heard allowing from is from a spiritual teacher. Mm-hmm. And I've been hearing this for 25 to 30 years. That's how long, because certain teachers use that term. Mm-hmm. So hearing it for 25 or 30 years, what I do is I grin at them and I say, I tune you out. I hear nothing. It's blah, blah, blah. You have picked most meaningless words that you can ever pick, or whoever's telling it, you know, it's meaningless. Blah, blah, blah. Allow. Because when I hear allow, I know nothing, I think nothing, you know, and I relate to nothing. It's just like, what a silly expression. But then, okay, this is so important to source or soul or me or all of us. And so it causes me to get in there and, you know, dig it out or, you know, figure it out. So what is allowing? And you can say, allowing what? So I say, well, it's allowing your soul's desire, your true intention, what is going to feel good to you. That's what you're allowing. So that's a good place to start. So how do you allow? How you allow is you have to be a vibrational match to your desire. So there you go. Now you've got something. So what's a vibrational match? Well, what causes a vibration is what you think and how you feel. So and then how do you create those? The things what you focus on. And then that gives you something to think about. And then, you know, a response of something to feel. So I have to go and fill it out, fill it in, because I mean, it doesn't matter. The greatest, any of them, come down right now and tell me to allow. You know, I say, you know, big deal. What? You know, what? But if someone would say, how can you be a vibrational match to what you want? And even if I was the furthest way, you know, the resistance, I would say, oh, I've got a desire. Contrast. So, you know, so what I don't want is contrast. So I would appreciate the contrast. So that would be a step, or that, you know, is headed toward being a vibrational match to what I desire, and being a vibrational match is allowing. You know, that's what they're talking about, allowing. And even our dear council the other day, sarahlandon.com, the council who all the time is yakking, allow, just allow, only allow, just allow. All you have to do is allow. That taught themselves. It was very interesting the other day. And they said, all you have to do is allow, only allow. And then they said, oh, okay. And to allow, you may have to think different thoughts, feel different feelings, stop telling stories, tell different stories, and take different actions.
Take different actions.
Oh, yeah.
I noticed that on the last call too.
Okay. And I thought,
I'm like,
oh,
are they answering our question? You know, did they knew we were going to do this week? So they, yeah. I love your honesty about that, Dave, because when I was, you know, I wait to get like a download, kind of what the topic should be that we're going to do next. And by the way, one of the ones we're doing coming up for those listening is just on focus. So we're doing another session on focus, and allow to me, I was kind of like that too. Sometimes Sharon, I'm like, well, what does it mean how do I allow? How do I allow?
yeah. Because the dictionary, to me, in our culture or my society or with my education or just the culture, the most custom use of the word is to give permission.
Oh, yeah.
And so it has that, you know, connotation. Now there is a subset, you know, you go to that second definition and it's to give something the opportunity. And okay, well, that's a little closer, but still have to go, well, how would you give source? How do you give energy, the opportunity? You have to be a match to it.
So I like that. So I like that you looked up the definition, talked about that, because I think to give permission is helpful too. Deborah, were you going to say something? After you're done, I'm gonna mention something about, yeah. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
Anybody want to input on that first, or Deborah, yeah, good.
I think everybody's just like said everything that kind of needs to be said, because a lot of it is in the language, of course. Like, you know, if you're allowing, the council would say allowing or denying, you know, or there's going with the flow and trying to control. I think that's the one. And of course, as Troy said, the resistance. What's the opposite of allowing? It is resistance. So yeah, I mean, it all depends which way you look at it. But two things I wanted to mention. One was, as we mentioned, Sarah Landon and the council, sarahlandon.com. The affirmation. I'm an affirmation fan. And one of the most powerful affirmations I've used was, I activate my light and allow all that I am. And that was one that she said some time ago, and I've used that a lot. I activate my light and allow all that I am. So I thought that was relevant with the allow. And the other thing that I want to mention, I mean, because I agree with everyone. I mean, Dawn was saying that, you know, everything's in existence. We have to, you know, match it and everything. And I you know, I think the one word that I do want to add, how do we allow? For me personally, I think trust is relevant, because I think once you trust that the universe, you know, that you are the universe and you are creating your own reality, you know, you are working for your own benefit the whole time. And when you realize that, you can trust the process. I think when you trust the process, it's obviously much easier to allow, isn't it? And this has really been coming up for me because we've just moved. And if anyone had told me, like even 5 years ago, that I would be living where I'm living now, I would never have believed them, because it's just not what I expected. But one of the messages that came through for me recently was, let go of the way you think your life should be. And I had a little bit of grief that my life wasn't quite where I thought it would be at my age, but it's the level of happiness has gone through the roof. It's just crazy because everything's just falling into place. And when you trust the process, it allows you to allow. And when you do that, you end up with like an inner knowing, you know, that inner knowing. And I think that's relevant to the process of allowing, right? Because when you have that inner knowing, hey, just, you know, you're going to hold your hands up, because you know what they say is like, you know, if things don't work out according to plan, that's because there's something better. And that's what, and I could never have dreamt of what I'm doing now, you know, and it hasn't happened the way I thought it would. So, but also there's this, there's a real minimalistic thing going on. And I realize that the richest people are not those with the most, they're the people that need the least. And that's,
wow.
I'm experiencing that. And so I've had I've created for myself a few challenges. And I'm aware that if I have resistance that they're going to persist. What you resist persists. So I was letting go, even when we had no water, even when we had no this, I was just like, that's okay, because I have a little bottle, that's okay. You know, everything was fine. You know, there was a little tiny part of me that was like, no, it isn't. But, you know, the majority of me was fine. And so everything was overcome. All the challenges were overcome like that, because I was allowing.
Mhm.
Do you see what I'm getting at? Whereas if I'd had resistance to it, I think I would still have no water, and I would still have, do you see what I'm getting at? But we create
Yeah.
that for ourselves, because I needed to put into practice the art of allowing.
You know what I love too about what you said? It's a moment by moment thing, right? You look at that, I don't have water, but yes, now I have water. I have this. It's a moment by moment thing in the allowing. It's not just, oh, I allow everybody, everything. I mean, we can say that. I allow whatever. But I think it's more powerful in the moment, the allowing, like you were doing.
Yeah, there's something really powerful about what everyone has said. And it came to me as I was listening, in that, yes, we do change and we can create what we want to create, and we change the way we think, we change the way, you know, and then the results change. But there's something about the idea of just, and this goes with trust, just, especially with the challenge being great, is just surrender and choose to be joyous and happy in that moment, even if that thing that has not changed, so that you can literally say, even if it never changes again, I choose to be happy. I choose to be at peace. And that surrender process really opens you up to then imagine something else without the intense desire to change what's not happening.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That surrender is really powerful, because with it goes that trust that Deborah was talking about. So that's what came to me. It's just, there's this idea to just, okay, it is okay. And I will love the moment, whatever happens. And then I can go ahead later on and do the imagination. That's what's happening for me with a couple of challenges, is the need for me to totally surrender and say, it's okay.
Yeah,
You
I had to
know, I
write
think
down some of the words you all said. I had to go down and write down some of the things we said, because I want to recap that at some point before we get up to the call. Yeah.
I think that you make such a beautiful point. It seems like what you pointed out to us is that before you can allow, you may need to surrender. You know, I don't remember an experience like that, but people might, and people do. So it's like, if you have to surrender, and it may be very particular to one particular belief system that you're attached to, one particular core wound, or whatever languaging we want to put to it. But, you know, it's like, then they can be in that exercise that I referenced before. I was to create, it's all right to feel like that. Now, as you might imagine, that can bring up a whole lot of crap when it didn't feel like it was all right to feel like that, right? Like, that's the bottom line. It wasn't. So yeah, there's going to be resistance. And for that, you have to get to that point of surrender. Troy, awesome. And at that point, you can just, the allowing becomes easier, because you've kind of put down the barriers that are, you know, holding it back.
Yeah, I like that you said that too, because I just written down too, it becomes a muscle. So Deborah, you brought up trust becomes knowing, but the more you do it in the moment, the less you, so let's say, for example, that you're using this muscle more and more, it gets easier to allow, easier to surrender to what is. But let's say part of that tool is I'm allowing something, and what comes to me is not what I think I wanted, right? Like Deborah said, maybe something different. So then it's when you have to surrender and allow that as in your highest good. And then the more you do that, the more you trust and the more you know. I think.
I think a quick analogy of allowing and resistance would be like falling or being pushed or jumping into water. And if you're resisting, you are just fighting against it. And if you're allowing, then you're just floating.
Oh yeah, like we talk about, I live in Florida, so we talk about rip currents down here. And people drown from rip currents when they fall in the water, and they get caught when they fight it. But if you relax and let it carry you to a place that lets you go, you survive. So yeah, that's a great analogy down the water, falling in and resisting and drowning and surrendering and allowing, right? So I was going to say that when I was a kid, one of my very, very favorite Bible verses was, "Be still and know that I am God." I'm not even sure why is it carried like that. That was just my favorite Bible verse, and I was raised in the church. So, and I think now, like I look back and I think it makes me like, I think the reason I liked it then and with that even why is that, we looked at God as power. So even now it's akin to like being still in the moment and allowing the power of the universe to co-create on its path. Of course, now I look at that verse a little differently. The way I look at that verse is, be still and know that I am God.
Mhm.
But if we're not being still in the moment, it doesn't mean you can't be, you have to sit and meditate 100%, but sometimes it's that stopping the resistance, being still, and then allowing what is, that is, and not surrendering to it and having the mad vibrational match. Anyway, so it occurred to me as I was preparing for this right before that may be why I was so attracted to that verse, and that has a lot to do with allowing, and maybe why sometimes it's a challenge for me. So
Great conversation.
I have a quick phrase that I use to stop going into the resistance or thinking negative about something, because I'm trying to remember that with source, or with my soul and with source, all is well. And I don't think it would be called a gospel song, but there is this Christian song. I grew up in the church, and it's called All Is Well with My Soul. And if you'll listen to that song, it's very penetrating because it's just so beautiful.
mhm.
It's just beautiful. So especially if you grow up or if you listen to it more than once, you can really, really resonate with it because it's just such movement and it penetrates.
Mhm.
And it's a
You know-
cry out or a declaration that all is well with my soul.
He wrote that when he was on a ship that was drowning. He thought he was going to die. So he was in the water. He was on a ship, thought he was going to drown, and that's when he wrote that song.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. So it's a phrase or a concept that I can remember that's not just strictly light, like a little, rhyme or something, because it penetrates, because I relate to it so well that I can resonate with it and bring up the full emotion of it. But what I do is I just practice that when I can. So, for example, I bought pansies about 3 weeks ago, and I thought, aren't I so clever? I got the first ones that came in to the garden center. They're all fresh and new. They haven't had time to kill them yet. I bought flats and flats of pansies, and then I've had ice storms for three weeks with temperatures in single digits and teens at night. And now these are a cold hardy plant, but they can't come from a nursery to that temperature, and stick them in the ground. And I said, that's okay, you little babies. I would take you outside every day in the sun, and I bring you inside every night and put you to bed for 3 weeks. So I was taking care of my little plants. So I went out today to see, and by the way, I love you so much. Let me give you some advice. Don't try to plant pansies in ice. Snow, but ice. So I'm out there with a shovel trying to beat and break up the ice. But no, it's okay. It's not happening. Uh, my little pansies, and they're dying. I've got maybe 6 flats. This is about 100 or something plants, and they're just dying. They've got some kind of, root rot, and so I just told the story, of having them and care or whatever, and they're dying. And I just looked at that and I said, all is well with my soul. And I said, source, my bigger part is not disturbed by this. And I went, wow, there's another way, there's better plants, or or I'm going to go out, or it's going to be adventure to find some more or something, whatever. And so I stopped the resistance. And I think I even did a little bit of allowing, because it's like, oh, okay, maybe something better.
I love that practical example. I love that. That's perfect, because that's what it comes down to, is practical examples, and the big and the small and whatever. That's awesome.
Yeah. And it felt like I had a companion when I said, okay, now my soul doesn't feel bad about this, is not worried about it. And it felt like that was like I was taking care of myself, or being a companion, like soothing myself. I said, oh, it's okay. Let the frickin' plants die. It doesn't matter.
As a dedicated gardener, committed and impatient to get spring going, it must be very challenging. So you had to surrender to the reality that these plants were not going to make it. All right. As other people will roll their eyes as well to it is what it is, you do with just allow.
And,
right?
And well on
Those
herself.
sayings mean nothing until you experience the essence of it. And in the interim, you kind of ward yourself off from them by not allowing, not surrendering to that experience. But once you've had it, it's a breakthrough, and then you're done, and you go on, and you surrendered, and you allow, and you chill by choice. Awesome. Can't wait to see your new flower beds once they're all planted.
Whatever it's big.
Beautiful.
Does somebody have something they want to add? Otherwise, I think I'm going to just say some key things that you all brought up.
It just feels like, as I'm listening, that surrendering for me is a heart experience. Sometimes the resistance is a head experience. Most of the times it's a head experience. A head trying to engage the heart.
Oh, that's excellent.
But the heart surrender is to say, okay, I'm going to be happy anyway. And there's no thoughts about it. It's just, I'm going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I love the part you brought up about the head too, because that goes back to something I think John said at the very beginning. Getting in our heads, want to control it, knowing, we know best. We'll figure it out. So you said surrender is a heart space and resistance is in the head space.
Yeah, and in imagination to try to change things using is oftentimes a head stuff trying to engage the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's originating in the head, trying to engage the heart, and the old trying effort is defeating itself because it's the head still trying to control.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas it's surrender is the heart. I'm just figuring this out right now. I mean, as we go here.
You're feeling
Whereas
it out.
surrender, it just says, okay, I'm going to be okay. Even this doesn't change, I'm going to be okay. And then in that moment, your heart can open up to imagining something different, because you're no longer doing it to try to defeat and outmaneuver whatever is happening.
That is so good. And I like, because you're taking us to the next step. You're going all the way from, you're going allowing, and you're going to how to create, which I love that, because that's what we want to do. Obviously, we want to co-create our, yeah, that's excellent.
I think it's important, the point you made again about control. I know we mentioned it, but I think it's a powerful point at this time, because it's about not controlling. Why do we feel the need to control everything? And something dawned on me the other day about goals, because I always have a resistance to some of these courses and, have a goal to make more money or have a goal for this. And, I always kind of felt quite goalless, and then I thought, well, hang on a minute, if you have a goal, then you have an attachment to an outcome, because you're working to you're very attached to an outcome. And I think my intentions and my affirmations and my, whatever, my desires, I've brought them right back to just fulfilling my potential. Just fulfilling my potential. However, because, my life's given me a curveball, and for a reason, and I just get happier and happier. And it's got to the stage where it's just kind of like, oh my God, just do nothing and everything just falls into place. And dreams are being realized that, it's just, it's like that. It is that surrender, but it's that giving up the need to control everything and realizing that the only goal that we need in life is to fulfill our potential, because if you create any kind of goal, you're creating an attachment. And I think it's that non-attachment that is important. It's the same thing. It's just another word to describe this: letting go, not being attached, not being controlled. But also, just on another kind of note, which is what's coming up for me a lot lately, is with the outside world. What we're seeing in the outside world, the control, where are we trying to control ourselves? And I'm seeing so much of where I used to control, but even in the nicest way, because even if you have a goal, it could be the most positive goal, and you could be, flowing towards that goal. But if you're making a big effort, then is that flowing? Because we know that if you're in your now space, as Dawn says, and as Sarah says, things are effortless and choiceless, and, they happen with ease and grace and all of this. So if you find yourself making a really big effort, or pushing a rock up a hill, I like to say, you have to ask yourself, hang on a minute, let go of that rock and see what happens. I think it can get to that stage, because I think as a collective, I see that as one of the ways of we're releasing the control in the world. If we don't want to be controlled in any way, then we have to stop controlling, if you see what I mean, because the outside obviously is a reflection of what we're doing to ourselves. So that letting go of control, I think is really important, because I think it's all part and parcel of creating world peace, if I can say that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. So if somebody out there is listening and they go, okay, does allow mean I do nothing? So, and we all know that's not exactly what allowing means. Allow doesn't necessarily mean that you sit, do nothing, never move, never go anywhere, never do anything, never follow. I mean, we know it's more about you follow your inspired. You follow what you're given inspired action. But what would you say about that, Tori? You sound like you were going to answer that.
Well, it's surrendering. It's surrendering. In other words, you're accepting whatever you wanted to change before, and you say it can be that way, and I can still be happy. But that doesn't mean you don't stop altogether. What you do, they say, is I'm going to go out and do my joy with whatever's happening. I'm just going to go out and have fun. I'm going to go enjoy whatever I can enjoy, because that's what I'm given, this freedom now. So essentially, you are doing what Deborah said, which is detaching from the whole outcome of the specific thing that you're so focused on, and you're just having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want to do. I mean, this whole thing is for me, guys. You guys are giving me a lesson. It's all unfolding to me, because it's like, whoa.
It's always for me, actually.
Yeah,
I get so much
it actually is for me.
Oh, that's perfect. I love it.
Well,
Uh-huh.
I'm sure each of us has gotten a great deal out of this, as we hope those who may be listening have as well. But that is the beauty of sharing with others who are open-minded, open-hearted, open sensory to what's happening within them and around them. And when you can have conversations and give each other the room to express, it just pulls together all the facets of the diamond, and it just sparkles.
No, thank you for that. I agree with that, Sylvia. It definitely does. I feel like when we're together and we're having these conversations with our fellow masters, I feel like the whole vibration rises so much. There's no way I could be in resistance or not allow or surrender.
Yeah. Just jump on a master's call and you'll start to allow boom, boom, boom.
How to reach out to another person, master. So I'm going to do a little, so some of the just key points we said is detachment, be still, know that I am God, all is well in my soul, trust, you do it moment by moment, opposite of resistance, let go of control, surrender, to not control, become a vibrational match, trust, and then go from trust to knowing, and love the moment. So those were some of the key things, words anyway, I think. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Sandy.
And we'll see everybody again soon.